You know, I've seen people act like that in pictures. What do they call them? Zombies or something?
Zombie.
What's a zombie?
Just what is a zombie?
Well, a zombie, there's, Mr. Bill, there's the living dead.
They are the living dead.
Get into zombies.
He's a zombie.
Because a zombie has no will of his own.
It's an army of zombies no armies could stand.
What is wrong? What is wrong?
Welcome to Zombie Strains, the podcast where we watch all the zombie movies. And this week, this takes us to a different country and a different language. We are watching our first Mexican horror movie. It is from 1953 and it is called El Monstruo Resucitado, which is translated in English as The Revived Monster. I'm John.
And I'm Andy.
I'm Brad.
Does anybody want us to keep saying El Monstruo Resucitado for the next hour and a half, or should we just switch to The Revived Monster?
What does your heart tell you, John?
My heart tells me I would insult somebody, if I haven't already, with my pronunciation of this film's title.
Well, it's one of those things. I think we need to go with Revived Monster just for the sake of the Spanish language we would be butchering.
Yes,
but
agreed.
It is one of those things.
I was a German major, so I'll stick with English.
The English translation it just feels so flat compared to
I know.
name.
It's very The Revived Monster. Woohoo! Like it's a little on the boring side. Yeah. Here's another funny thing about this movie. It's good.
It was really good.
Yes, I was shocked. Well, we'll get into it, but I felt it looked sort of old-fashioned and old-timey, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a clunker," and it was not. So, Andy, do you have any content warnings for this one?
No, I don't think so. The big difficult theme, I guess, of this movie is physical deformity and questions about beauty and deformity, and so that's. I will say that is a kind of an awkward topic, but I felt that this movie actually wrangled with that issue quite interestingly. So, be warned if that's going to bother you, but I thought that this was an interesting film.
Yeah, it is a horror movie. So we sort of take that as a baseline. Somebody gets strangled. There's a deformed mad scientist. None of that is out beyond the pale if you like horror movies, in my opinion.
All right. So, hey, Brad, do you want to give us the rundown on the background of this film?
Sure, but I'll tell you my research is limited by my lack of Spanish, so I wish I could provide more, but here's what I could find. The Revived Monster was released in 1953, and according to the British Film Institute, 1956 to 1966 is considered the classic period of Mexican fantasy films, and the BFI describes the genre that includes horror as fantasy or macabre. This era was spurred by the success of a few earlier Mexican films that seem like horror to me, including The Revived Monster. Chano Orweda directed The Revived Monster. He directed over 100 movies between 1928 and 1974.
That's amazing.
And in looking at his credits, he made all kinds of movies. He made crime, dramas, musicals, horror, and, of course, lucha libre films. Orweda acted a lot in the late 60s. He did one role in 1939, but returned to acting in 1969 in the film Chanok. Chanok was a series of adventure films featuring the hero, Chanok, and Chano played the sidekick. He appeared in several American films, including The Wild Bunch and Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia.
Oh, interesting.
Oh.
Dino Maiuri co-wrote the script with Orweda. He was an Italian, but looking at his credits, he wrote a lot of Mexican movies. I've actually seen one of his other films, and it's called Kiss the Girls and Make Them Die from 1966.
Oh, interesting.
That's
Is that a
great
Mexican
title.
film or an Italian film?
It's a crazy James Bond spoof produced by Dino De Laurentiis and Columbia Studios. And it's about a madman hired by China to sterilize just the U.S., but he decides it'd be better if he sterilized the entire world, except for himself and his handpicked bevy of beauties.
Aha.
Wow. That is a really on-the-nose Bond movie title. If you want to just have a literal Bond movie title.
Yeah, right?
That one's right there for you.
Yeah, so it's an American-Italian co-production that's, I think, set in Brazil. So it's kind of it's bonkers.
Well, that's okay. This is a Mexican film, and it's actually set in Czechoslovakia, what was called Czechoslovakia at the time. So,
and the last item I researched is the lead actress is Miroslava. She plays Nora. She was born in Prague. Her father died when she was young. Her mother remarried a Jewish doctor. And then as World War II approached, they fled to Scandinavia, and then they emigrated to Mexico in 1941. And she then appeared in 29 Mexican films and 3 Hollywood ones. And unfortunately, she died a few years after this film.
There have been more countries mentioned in the last 30 seconds than we've seen in like the whole rest of the podcast, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Doing my little research, I heard it referred to as the golden age of Mexican cinema, but I think we've got our next podcast for after this podcast, which is to explore the roots of the golden age of Mexican cinema. In all seriousness, though, in that same vein, they say that like the 1960s, like 60 to 66 is the sort of premium time for Mexican horror in the 20th century. And I think we've got a couple of movies we'll be watching from that period. So I'm even more excited than I was before we watched this movie.
John, that's what I have. Any historical context for us?
Yeah, I'll give you just a little bit. The history of Mexico is incredibly complicated, and I am even less of an expert than I am on anything else we talk about in this podcast. But I will say it was sort of like a lot of places in the 1950s, post-World War II. It was a time of transition. They had a communist revolution in the first part of the 20th century. This is around the time that they were transitioning away from that sort of military dictatorship. Again, I am not an expert on the details, so we won't go there. But what I will say is that during the Second World War and after, the world was hungry for popular cinema, and Western Europe for sure, and America had different priorities at the time, or sort of didn't jump back into cinema right away. So it created this, it was one of the factors that created an opportunity for Mexican cinema to become popular and sort of thrive throughout the world. It's this period of time where Mexican cinema becomes sort of the default cinema for Latin America.
Yeah, thanks, John. So, John, do you want to move right into the movie here and maybe give us a 60-second overview and before we dive in?
Yeah, let's do that. The one other thing I'll say is we don't have a lot of clips for you today because they're in Spanish, though we might throw a couple things out there. What I tried to do as we were putting this together is just find quotes from the movies and write them down so we could share them.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So, but here's the 60-second version. So the film is set in the Czech Republic, and it features a young reporter named Nora. Nora is meeting early on with her editor, telling him how bored she is with her current assignments. And he says, you should look at this ad that's in our paper. It's an ad from a man who is apparently lonely and is seeking a woman for companionship. So if you want to do something exciting, maybe you should answer this ad. She does that and meets a Dr. Crimin, who is a deformed man who's living on his own in a castle by the sea. She melts his heart. It appears that they're going to have a relationship. He then overhears her saying to her editor she's more interested in the excitement than the person. He becomes angry and vengeful, tries to chase her and kill her, eventually reviving a zombie to hunt her down. And the film ends with both Dr. Crimin and the zombie dying and Nora being saved by the editor. There's a lot in the middle there, but I think that's the super high level of what goes on here.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So let's get into it, Andy. I want to start with, first of all, the opening music is awesome. I don't know how you felt about the soundtrack to this thing, but it is, I would use the term muscular. Like it's there and really strong.
Yep, I'd agree.
And we start, and the other thing I'd like to say is this film has a ton of style. When we first started watching it, it's in black and white, obviously. It's 1953. There are some color movies, but not that many. But when we started it sort of appears to be like a foggy street in London or something. It looks like some old European city. She's walking. There's a street light. She walks into this restaurant, and the whole thing just sort of drips of atmosphere. Even though it looks older, like it looks a little cheaper than the movies we've been watching, it takes advantage of that to create these sort of stark cityscapes and dramatic lighting to make it, I don't know, I can't think of a word other than atmospheric. Do you know what I'm talking about, Andy?
No, I totally agree. I noted that too. It felt the use of shadows and camera angles. There are a couple of incredible camera shots in this one. It seemed pretty noirish to me, or at least it evoked that to me. And yeah, I mean, every scene, I mean, it's in black and white, so obviously But within that, this film really knows what to do with shadows, I think. So
Kind of similar to I Walked with a Zombie, if I were to compare it to one we've already seen.
Yes, I would too. There's some great scenes, and I want to get into them. But yeah, like we said, this restaurant plays a big part in this whole movie. I mean, one thing's like one of the things they do well, but which is kind of funny, is it's obviously a cheap movie because they don't have that many sets. There's the restaurant, there's wharf number 4, there's the castle, which seems to be just one big room, and then there's the graveyard outside of the castle. And that's sort of where most of the action is set.
the restaurant is like the kitchen from, I think, King of the Zombies.
Yes,
it's
back to the restaurant. Yes,
yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
After every action scene, there's like regrouping at the restaurant.
But let's start there. So Miroslava, who plays Nora, goes into the restaurant and meets her editor. So let's talk about these two people to start with. So you mentioned it at the beginning, but Miroslava, the actress, is absolutely devastatingly gorgeous. She is not Mexican. She is from the Czech Republic, and she just has these stunning features, and they say she's a redhead. It looks like blonde hair from the black and white. And she looks tough, no nonsense. She smokes, like she seems to be a force to be reckoned with. And
this movie really knows how to just frame her, I think.
Yes.
It really like evokes her charisma. I mean, she just dominates every scene she's in.
Now, the editor, he's a bit of a blob, but she comes in and says, "This reporting is boring." At one point, she says, "I am living a stupid life."
Yes. Can we pause for a minute and talk about the translation? So I was watching with English subtitles turned on.
Yeah.
And I don't know if these were done by AI or by like a well-intentioned fan or something, but they just, I had to laugh at it. They were overly literal and just really artless.
Yes.
I know enough Spanish that I could hear what they were saying, and then seeing that like the flattest most comically flat possible English rendition of what they were saying.
Yes. In fact, the personal ad. So in this scene, the editor reads to her, tells her to look at this ad in the paper. And here's how the ad reads in subtitles. "A man of ripe age, owner of a great fortune, would like to meet a young, beautiful woman with great feelings." That was my translation of that. That seemed a little odd to me.
And so he mentioned that this ad had been running in the paper for like a year.
Yes.
So I want to throw this out to our readers. Ladies, would that have enticed you to respond? Because he's not getting anybody so far until this film.
This is so bizarre to me because as much as I enjoyed this film, the whole premise, I'm just sort of screaming from my modern viewpoint, like, "Lady, what are you doing? You've agreed to meet." So the editor convinces her that she should meet this guy. So she places an ad in the paper back saying, "I would like to meet you. Let's meet at 9 p.m. at the wharf, like by the sea. I'll come alone and you come alone." Like, I don't know any person, much less a young woman, who would make this plan.
And
but
it's not just a wharf. It's like the scariest, crimiest looking wharf you've ever seen in your life.
Exactly.
So, what happened to meeting in a public place, like at the library or something, right?
I sold a car recently and I'm like, "Yeah, I'll meet you in the Kroger parking lot. I'm not meeting you in my house." Yeah.
We should add that this entire movie takes place at night.
Yes.
There are no scenes in
does.
daylight.
Yep.
And we should also note, so Nora's motivation here, I mean, she's not answering this ad because she's romantically intrigued by this guy, but her editor convinces her that there's got to be a story behind this weird ad that has been running forever in the paper, right?
Yes. Yeah, I put in my notes in big letters, "Is this a good idea?" But this is what we call suspending disbelief, and this movie asks us to do this. So that aside, I want to talk about this first scene and just how it looks, because I think there's so much to the look here. So she heads towards the wharf. It's shot, like you said, at night in this stark black and white. She is wearing all black with a white flower on her lapel. He is wearing all black. He's got sunglasses, a black fedora, a black mask, and a black trench coat. And they're sort of shot against this stark light, having this sort of tense conversation. And the tension music combined with the whole look of this whole scene, and the fact that I don't speak Spanish, so I have to read the subtitles really intensely. Like, this sent the tone and the tension of the movie for me, like, immediately.
This was one of several conversation scenes
Yes.
that are among the tensest things we've seen in this podcast so far.
Absolutely.
Honestly.
Like, you were going to say something, producer Brad?
Well, I was going to say, I think it's even more tense than a trench coat. He's got a black cape.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, he's got like a giant cloak that he goes around in. And how would you describe? So she is obviously frightened of him and scared when she first meets him. And he is very excited to meet her, saying that seeing her, like his dream of meeting somebody that he could relate to is overcome by the reality of how amazing she seems to be. So what does he propose to her? That also seems like a horrible idea, Andy, but let's suspend our disbelief.
Yeah, well, he asks her basically if she's willing and to be tested, right? Is that what you're getting at?
Yes.
And he doesn't say what the test will be, except that it won't involve hurting her in any way.
Right.
And she agrees, and this is obviously an insane thing for a regular person to agree to do, especially, but I just got to say, she sells it. She sells me on this character who is scared, but is making a decision that she's going to do this. And I thought it was just a great scene. Like, I just wrote that down on my notes. Like, this is a great scene.
Yeah, it's interesting because she has to do all the work. He has sunglasses, a mask, a hat, and a cloak on. Like, he does a decent job with like his blocking and his performance, and he's very physical. So when he's disappointed that she doesn't trust him initially, like, his shoulders kind of slump. But as far as the face and like the tension in her body, she has to do all the work in this scene. And she pulls it off. I think it's amazing. But she decides she's going to trust him. She's going to go take his test. And then so they drive to his house in his convertible. And then I think she immediately regrets.
Yes,
Before we get there, I have a question. So he is named Dr. Herman Ling here, but in the name of the movie, he's referred to as Dr. Crimin. So is this like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing, or am I just confused?
So I couldn't figure that either.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I think. He calls himself Dr. Crimin later when he turns into the mad scientist, and he announces. So I think it is a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, in the sense that he has become someone new at that point, Dr. Crimin.
Okay. All right. I'll go with that. I think we'll call him Herman for now, and then we'll talk about him becoming Dr. Crimin later. Does that sound all right?
That sounds great. John, what is the location through which you must pass to get to his creepy mansion on a cliff?
This is amazing. They pull up to the house. There's this huge gate lit by dark moonlight. There are dogs howling, and it's a graveyard. Like, whoa, I was a little nervous about going to this strange man's house, but he doesn't live in a house. He lives in a giant Gothic castle that the only way to get to the house is by walking through the graveyard.
Really? Like, there's truly no other way. It just makes you wonder. He does offer these reassuring words, and I want you, and I'll just ask you if your fears would have been put to rest by this. He says, "Don't worry, nowhere on earth can you be as safe as in this house where dead people live."
Yeah, that was. I was nervous for a minute there. Yeah. Having said that, this scene looks amazing as they walk through the graveyard to his house. And we'll come back to this again. Cheap sets, so we'll come back here a couple of times. Now, I also want to let's move to his house. They go into his house. You do see his lab later, but it's really this sort of great drawing room entryway. And there's a fire burning in the fireplace, but he's not alone, but there's nobody else. What is populating this room? Because it's bananas, Andy.
I know. I don't want us just to keep saying this was amazing, this is amazing, but like, this was great because the first thing she sees when she steps into like the entry room of his house is a bunch of catatonic looking women standing around and posed in different poses. Like, some are sitting, some are standing. Many of them have their like arms out and as if they're sort of caught in mid gesticulation. Yeah, they're all staring. And later, I didn't know what to do with this, but it like truly one of the eeriest things we've seen in this podcast.
Yeah, and actually one of my favorite bits is he goes to play the piano here, There's a skull on the piano, first of all.
Yes.
Then second of all, there's two intertwined hands, like holding hands just protruding out from the piano, like from where the strings are in the piano.
Those hands are in they're on the screen so long. It's so good. It's so good.
Now, we do find out a couple things in this scene. Let me talk about it generally, and then we can do a couple specific things. So we meet his assistant, Misha. Remember, this is in Czechoslovakia, so that's his assistant's name. He's sort of cruel to his assistant, but his assistant does talk to Nora and give her sort of lowdown, like, these are sculptures he's created. And we found out later, during the course of the scene and after, that he was a plastic surgeon, so he's creating these sculptures to be as realistic as possible because he has the ability to do that.
So I don't want to jump ahead too much,
Yeah.
and at one point there's a very, very tense, like very modern feeling sequence where Nora gingerly touches the face of one of these women.
I was sure she was going to wake up.
Yeah,
I was sure.
It's like, and just generally, this movie, the way it did and it framed like kind of suspense scenes, felt more modern than a lot of the other films we've been doing.
Absolutely.
In that same way that like some movies, like I Walked with a Zombie, or sometimes individual actors in a movie seem to be a couple of decades beyond everybody else in the movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
Are these wax like mannequins? Like, are they real women that he's killed?
I don't think so.
I thought these were real women that he killed.
I think they are. I think at this point he hasn't killed anybody. I think they are sculptures that he created to assuage his loneliness. That's what I think.
Okay. So, but they are real human actors. They're not.
I think so. Yeah.
They're not like mannequins. So, I mean, they look really realistic.
Yes.
And I suppose if she had touched one and it was real flesh, she wouldn't have like stayed in the house as long as she did.
Yeah.
But,
I don't think so.
okay.
So
there's a scene later that confused me about this, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it later.
yeah. Well, let's talk about a couple of interesting things in this scene. So he sits down and he plays the piano, still with his face, covered and his hat on. This is when she has the conversation with Misha. But like here at this point, we are in some combination of Frankenstein, Beauty and the Beast, and Phantom of the Opera. Like it's all happening together. He plays the piano beautifully, and then Nora has this like intuition, and this sort of magic tinkling sound occurs, and it's just absolutely bizarre. But we're filled with tension, and then we come to another long conversation where Herman is trying to convince Nora that he's safe, she should trust him. He says at one point, the nerves are bad advisors, Nora, meaning if you're scared, that doesn't mean you should flee. So this whole time and this whole sequence is about her thinking, I should get out of here, and him saying, no, I'm safe, it's okay. And the way they shoot this is they shoot the whole thing low. So we're like looking up at them as they're having this conversation. I don't know, the whole thing, just the way they put the whole thing together just had me absolutely enraptured by this scene.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that Misha chats with Nora and then is berated by Herman for doing so. And he says that these are, like you say, these are my master's like projects, but that's not what he really does. He really does something else. Did you mention that? Like,
no.
So there's this, I don't know if the translation made total sense, but he seemed to be hinting that Herman has an obsession and it's not, it's something maybe a little bit like worse than the creepy mannequins. So.
Yes. Yeah. But despite all of this, he invites her to his laboratory. And at this time he says something to Misha that's sort of a throwaway line that comes back later where he's like, make sure you drug the creature with the maximum dose or something before they head to the lab.
And that's because a hideous whale could be like,
that's right,
broke out. And Nora kind of freaked out. Herman makes an obvious dumb excuse like, oh, it's like the fisherman coming in at night or whatever, like, the worst possible story. And then as an aside, he says to Misha, basically don't let that happen again.
Right.
And when you say a whale breaks out, this would be the sound again, not a large blue whale breaking into the castle.
We have a problem on this podcast with the word whale, don't we? Yes.
So let's go to the next scene because we don't have to go through it beat by beat, but I think this is fascinating. So they go down to this laboratory and he tells her about what a great plastic surgeon he is. But the tragedy is, despite all his gifts, his ability to work miracles, he cannot fix his own deformed face. And he tells her this story of his tragedy about how his parents cast him out because he was so deformed, and his village cast him out, and nobody would talk to him, and he is angry and vengeful, and he says, I want justice, and I'm going to take my justice, and I'm going to take it out starting with the women of the world first. So again, Nora's like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. And he's like, but no, I don't mean you. Right. But then something interesting happens. This is the point. They talk about the test. And what is the test? And the test that she agreed to was to see his face, and how she would react. And so this is what happens. He takes off his hat, his sunglasses, his mask. And what does Nora see, Andy?
She sees a hideously deformed face.
Yes.
It's obviously a lot of prosthetics. It reminded me of that famous Twilight Zone episode where the plastic surgeons are. Have you seen that one?
Yes.
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 So they're wearing the masks, and they take them off, and their face looks like the masks.
It's evocative of like the Elephant Man, kind of what you might consider kind of an old school idea of what kind of a hideously deformed face would look like.
Yeah, it's funny. They say he says I also have a stiff face, which means it doesn't move much, and I think they had to say that because the mask is so immobile. It just sort of is on his face. Like they had to excuse the fact that when he talks, why his mouth doesn't move that much, but yes, it's, I don't know. Did you find the face laughable? I did not, but I could see somebody laughing at it.
I did not find it laughable. And as the movie goes on, it becomes pretty effectively menacing, I would say.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, but what this scene is doing feels weird to a modern viewer, I think, in that I don't think we're really primed today to recoil from, I guess, physical ugliness.
Yes.
In the way that this movie just assumes that you could hardly even look at this person. And Nora, although this scene does get quite interesting here, but Nora's initial reaction is to like flinch away and gasp, right?
She faints actually briefly.
And that feels like a very old school thing in a movie that in other respects feels more modern. So I don't know. What do you think about all that?
No, I think you nailed it. And I think it's fascinating, and I think it really works despite its sort of cheesiness. This whole thing. So first of all, we're pretty far into the movie, and all we really had is a couple of conversations between these two characters. It is an absolute melodrama. It's a soap opera. There's very little action, but I'm completely engaged with these people in their program. And I think by the fact that they don't rush through it, they drag out the fact that he won't reveal his face, makes it work. And then obviously, again, the performance by Nora makes it work.
The next couple minutes, once he reveals his face and Nora initially faints, we get what I think is like the centerpiece of this film. Do you want to talk us through it here?
Absolutely. So after she recovers, she says, no, don't be so angry at the world. And she kisses him on the forehead. And he is overcome with joy. And he starts, so they set up earlier in the movie that he had covered all the mirrors in the house. So he's overcome with joy. He goes running around the house about how she has kissed him. He tears the coverings off all the mirrors. He looks at himself and proclaims himself handsome. And then he says, and now I will use my miracle hands to fix my own face. Nora, you've made me the happiest man alive. Like I get the impression he's been placing this ad just trying to find somebody with any drop of tenderness in their heart. And Nora is that person.
Yeah. And Nora is also, really encouraging him to set aside his hate. And this is a moving scene. As silly as it almost is, it doesn't feel silly when you're watching it.
Right.
But I mean, her thing is, put aside your hatred. You deserve to be happy. You are so skilled. Use your skills to help humanity. And he seems to undergo a complete transformation at this.
And I think we cut to the next night. I think there's a cut here. The one thing you see in the morning is all of those sculptures are gone, and they're in the sea, sort of at the bottom of the cliff of this house. He's thrown them all away because he doesn't need them anymore because he's met Nora.
And around this time, I will say, this sequence, you want to be happy that he has kind of turned his attitude around and he has found hope and he has found love and acceptance. But there is definitely still an underlying tone of menace to this, because he says a couple things along the lines of like, well, and Nora, you will be staying with me forever now that, we've made this connection. And so it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So he's excited. He says, I'm going to go and I'm going to meet. And Misha, his assistant, is trying to tell him, like, don't be a fool. Like, don't go to see her. This is not going to work out the way you want it to. And he says, don't you worry. I'm going to go. I have an appointment to see her tonight. And apparently they're going to meet at the one restaurant in town.
Did you make a note of what Misha memorably tells him?
No, what does he say?
So Misha is trying to brace him for disappointment because he's so enthusiastic. He's going to go out into the world because he's found acceptance again. And Misha's trying to say, don't get your hopes up. And he says, remember that the woman and the snake got along well. And
That's right. I forgot about that.
It was just such an interesting line. And I mean, is he trying to suggest that Nora is the woman and he is like the Satan figure in this?
I think so.
I don't know. It's just an interesting line. The translation might not be doing that justice, but yes. But yeah, then it's back to our favorite hangout,
right?
The restaurant.
Yep. We've got Nora and her editor, and Nora's smoking again, which is amazing.
And in this scene, did you notice the shadows of her hand in this scene?
No, tell me.
They have it lit in such a way. She's got her hands out in front of her, like manipulating the cigarette and stuff. And you can see just the shadows of all her fingers across her chest. I can't describe it. It looks, it's just like a really interesting look.
Well, I think that also jumps out because she's all in white now. She's wearing 100% white top to bottom outfit in this sequence. And for a little while here, yeah.
She doesn't realize, so she's talking to her editor, but she doesn't realize that Herman is lurking and hiding nearby and eavesdropping on her conversation. I think the idea was Herman was going to meet her there, but he showed up early and is eavesdropping on her, right?
Yeah, I think when he saw her with the editor, he sort of ducked back into the shadows. But she is not cruel in this. Tell me what you think of this scene. I feel like what she's saying is, he looks like a monster, and I think she even says, I'm not sure if he's human or something summoned from the grave, but I am interested in him, and I think I have a mission here into sort of getting him to do good. But when Herman overhears this, he flees because he thinks that Nora has betrayed him, and she kind of has. So how did you take this conversation away?
So this is how I understood it, So Nora is talking to her editor, is kind of giving this big speech about what she thinks.
Right.
Because he's asking her, like, what are you going to do? Is this a good story? But this conversation happens in two halves. And Herman leaves after hearing the first half. But the first half of the conversation is where she sounds mean.
Yes.
And the second half is where she sounds nice. So what she does in the first half of the conversation, she's saying, yes, this is an incredible story. You won't believe what a weird guy I've found and what a cool story I could write about this. And then Herman, overhearing it, assumes, I think naturally, that, she has been stringing him along because she just sees him as a source of a lurid story she could write for the newspaper.
Yes.
And so he huffs out. But just as he huffs out, in kind of classic, like, tragedy style, it's a misunderstanding to some extent.
Yes.
Because as he's huffing out without her knowledge, she says, but even though I have this great story, what I actually care about here, I actually think that he is, I actually care about this person and want him to be able to experience like a happy life and to give something to, back to humanity and that sort of thing. So he missed the part where he left before she said, but, and then qualified everything she said before. So I didn't read it so much as a betrayal as like a classic, like, misunderstanding scene. What do you think about that? Or did you read it as she was more of a jerk than I did?
No, I don't think so. I think she wants something different than what Herman wants, right? Herman wants her to love him, and I don't think she does, but I think she cares for him and wants to help him. And,
yes.
But I think your interpretation is correct. But she sees that he hasn't shown up because she doesn't realize he'd been eavesdropping. So she goes to his house, dressed all in white, glowing in the moonlight, and he is waiting for her in the graveyard.
Yes.
And he is not happy. And he mocks her and her writing, and he tells her that she is bad and cruel, just like all the others. And now, with your betrayal, a monster has been awakened inside of me.
Yes. His sarcastic lines are so good.
Yes.
At one point, he says, "I'm eager to read every word of your sensational coverage."
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So good.
And so she flees, and he chases her. And they go on something of an extended chase. She flees into the city, and I believe they are at the wharf, or at least in a sort of dodgy part of the city.
I think they might be at the fishermen were mentioned earlier.
Yes,
I think this. Yeah, so I think she's down at like the fishermen.
So
like, wharf area.
Yeah, he's chasing her around the docks, beneath, at the sort of the foot of the castle. It's a kind of tense scene because she's all in white. He has his hat on, but not his mask. He's chasing her around, and she keeps trying to hide. And then as soon as he's about to walk by, she like knocks something over. And then the chase begins again.
That part of this chase was goofy, though. Like she's kicks over a gas can,
yes,
in a very improbable way. But I thought this was a great chase scene. And this is another scene that felt very modern horror movie to me. There's like a great sequence where she is hiding underneath, what is it? Like a pier or
like a walkway? Yeah.
Yeah, a walkway. And he is walking right above her, and she's like got her hand clenched
over her mouth.
She's cupping over her mouth. Like like we saw this scene was in like Alien Romulus, which you and I saw last year, right? Like the tense, like it's walking right near you, hold your breath. Like it was very effective.
Yeah. And actually we don't have a lot of clips, but I did as producer Brad did, just clip a bit of the tension music from this scene because I think it was really effective. And there he's walking above her. Yeah, I don't know. I hope that gives some of the spirit and atmosphere of the scene. It was really good. And actually, this scene has an amazing ending, which is she flees. Herman jumps out and strangles somebody all in white. And I'm like, oh my God, he just strangled Nora.
I thought so too.
I was like, what is happening? I didn't expect that. And then we cut back and he has killed a woman who looks much like Nora, but it is not Nora. And the police come, Nora escapes.
You know why? Wharf 4 is where all the women who dress in white and walk at night go.
I guess that must be.
So this is where I got confused. I thought they were still close to his house. I thought he might have a dock or something near his mansion, and I thought that this was one of his mannequins.
No, I think it was just another woman.
Yeah, so I thought this was a big reveal of like, oh, the mannequins are real.
Oh, I gotcha.
That doesn't make sense, and I was just not really understanding it. In my defense, it's very dark.
Yeah,
it was very dark this scene.
All right, so then we have some parallel scenes here. He goes back to his house, feeling betrayed. He's going to. He wants to kill her. In fact, he wants to kill everybody, but he's going to start with her. But he says, I'm not a common killer. I've experienced that. I don't want to do it again. And Misha volunteers to do it. And then he hatches a plan. So this was a little confusing to me, but let me see if I'm going to talk through this and you tell me. So we cut back to dinner with the editor. He doesn't believe Nora about this whole thing. He thinks she's having a nervous breakdown. And then she throws a newspaper with the picture of a handsome man on the table. And I wasn't quite sure what was going on here, but I think it's just a news report about somebody who has recently died. I don't know that there's anything more to it than that because they didn't give me a subtitle on what the newspaper headline says. So
I didn't understand this either. Here is the best I could piece together, and I don't think it's correct.
Yes.
But I think that Herman was believed to have died 20 years ago.
Right.
But mysterious deaths have been happening.
Oh, okay.
And Nora is suggesting that Herman is alive and has been killing these people.
Okay. All right.
So I think that is. I don't know why the mysterious death of one person would be like the full front page of the newspaper, but
I thought the newspaper was to show that someone died, and that's who Herman then went to dig up to reanimate.
Yes.
okay.
But it could
All
be
right.
both. That's what
Could
I
be
wasn't
both.
clear about. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yes. Carry on.
So, but now we have Herman and Misha stealing the body of this handsome young man, and they're conducting an experiment.
It is the most well-preserved corpse you've ever seen,
Yes.
by the way.
Yeah. A perfect, handsome-looking man. But now they're going to conduct an experiment, and what Herman wants to do is he wants to create a zombie, essentially, though he does not use the word zombie. And he wants to create it so that it obeys his every whim. It's basically that he's telepathically connected to this reanimated body and control its every move. And to do this, he's got to do this crazy experiment in his lab. So we now get to the Frankenstein part of the movie where this new person, who will be named Ariel, so that's just what we'll call him,
The zombie.
the zombie Ariel, is strapped to a table. And they bring in the creature that was wailing before. Andy, tell me. So the creature's name is Cronink. What? Tell me about this creature, Andy. It's bizarre.
Well, he's an ape-like person.
Yeah.
He's totally hairy. He's totally covered with hair. He appears to be like naked, but covered with hair. He looks like he has a kind of like, I don't know, like a caveman look almost.
Yes.
I
Except
don't know
his
if
head.
this-
He's shaved bald, but his hair, all hair from the neck down. Yeah.
I would describe him as bald with a hipster beard.
Absolutely.
So yeah, he's been. I guess the implication is this person can only communicate in like grunts
Yes.
and shouts. Is the idea here? He's like just had this person chained up down here for like years and years.
I'm not sure. They don't really explain it, but yeah, it's like
They don't. Yeah, I would say it is like just kind of an odd thing because I don't think they need this.
No.
For
I think he's just supposed to be horrific and scary.
I think so. Yeah. It's not. No other movie would do this. So I think they had a idea in mind that is maybe lost.
Yes,
to me at least.
And I think what they're trying to do is they're going to transfer Kronink's life force into Ariel, and then but since Kronink has no sort of mind of his own, that will allow Herman to control Ariel once he's revised. And this is in fact what happens. There's this amazing experiment where the lab blows up and lightning flashes and switches are thrown and all of this happens, but Ariel comes.
All of the like the scary looking mad science computer panels they're like sparking like the Enterprise does when it gets hit by a torpedo.
Yeah, it's bonkers. And then I don't think we need to go through this scene in detail, but this after Ariel comes back to life, Herman tells him that you belong to me completely. You only do what I say. You only act as I tell you to act. And then he sends Ariel into town and to wait for instructions. But the one thing I wanted to highlight here is that Ariel, now this zombie, I think the super important thing here is A, he's reanimated, and B, he has no free will, right? He is technically the resuscitated monster, but he doesn't look like one. He looks like a normal person in
he
every
looks
way.
totally alive. He's in like a dapper suit, and there's nothing zombie looking about him.
Yes.
And Herman communicates telepathically, which you hear his voice with sort of an echo effect applied to it.
And he tests Ariel. And how does he test him?
Yeah, so he does kind of a trial run with his new zombie killer by basically having him kill a random woman.
Yes.
So it's a pretty creepy scene. He stabs her to death with like a shard of glass. Like it's a little grisly. I mean, it's not graphic at all, but like it's kind of a chilling scene.
This movie is definitely like more gnarly than the American movies, right? Like killing people, strangling a woman, which you do actually see, and then jagged glass being used to kill another person. So So can I ask a question about Ariel?
Yeah. Is Ariel an empty vessel through which Herman is just speaking and controlling. Does he have his own personality at all that's just like overwritten by Herman's instructions? Like, could you talk about what your impression was of what type? I guess what I'm asking, what type of zombie is this? Is there a person in Ariel? Is it just like a completely empty shell that's being remote controlled? Like what? And I ask because in the scene we're about to get to, Ariel like basically has this flirty long conversation with Nora,
right?
In which he's like super suave and articulate and everything you would not expect, from a zombie, any of the zombies we've seen in any of the movies we watched so far. What do you think?
So, just to jump ahead a little bit, at the end, when he sort of, breaks free of control or is sort of no longer, when he decides to rebel against Herman, he is just sort of this inarticulate, snarling monster like Chronic, so when he's separated. So I feel like the underlying architecture is this sort of savage Chronic figure.
Okay.
He must have some vestige of his previous life because he is able to uphold a conversation. And I think you hear Herman saying, hey, now say this sort of thing to her or compliment her. So he's not literally telling him exactly what to say, but he's telling him what to do and say in a abstract manner. And Ariel is able to do that.
Okay.
So I think there's some of his residual personality, but mostly it's Chronic and the instructions from the doctor.
Okay. Now that you say that, that makes sense to me. So it's fun to see something just a little new and different, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So then Ariel meets her at the restaurant again and strikes up a conversation with her and tries to get to know her. I wasn't going to do this whole scene in detail, but what he does is convince her to let him interview her. What did you think of this scene? Like, fool me once, Nora. Fool me twice, though. Don't quit running into strange guys.
I liked this scene. Nora she is hesitant to believe Ariel, so he's really laying it on thick. Like his story is like, I want to interview you because you're such a famous journalist where I come from, and what a privilege it would be for me while I'm visiting town to interview you. The conversation has like some kind of flirty feel to it, I would say at points, but Nora is, I think it's just good acting on Nora's part. Like, I think you can see her kind of delighting a little bit, letting herself be flattered, but she's also cautious.
Yes.
And eventually Ariel lets slip one or two words that immediately sour Nora on it. He describes her as a woman with a soul.
That's right.
And that's language that specifically that Herman had used early when he was telling Nora why she was special.
Yes.
And so Nora doesn't maybe clock exactly what's going on, but that sets off alarm bells in her. And you can see that in the performance.
Yeah. So, you know what? And I'm looking at my notes here. I can't figure out how they get to the wharf again.
He basically talks her into it, despite her misgivings.
Yeah.
And she even says, like, what you just said reminded me of something that happened to me recently.
That's right. And so they do drive off to the wharf to have this conversation again at 9 o'clock at night. And Herman jumps in his car and follows them, and the editor sees this.
Yes.
But he's unable to follow immediately. And when they get to the wharf, Nora is obviously suspicious, and it doesn't take long before Herman starts talking to her through Ariel to say, you don't recognize me through this young man, you fool. You're back in my clutches. And I think she tries to flee again, at which point he orders Ariel to strike her and knock her out and take her back to the castle.
Yes. This was a fun scene. She confronts him like right away when she gets to the wharf. She should have done the confronting before they got to this isolated
I think
wharf.
Probably that's a good point.
But yes. And so then that leads us to kind of the climactic scene of this movie, right?
Yeah. So we're back. We're back in the great room of this castle. Nora's there. Ariel's there. Herman is there. Misha's kicking around. And we see this is a behavior that Herman's exhibited throughout the movie that we didn't really focus on, but he is cruel to Ariel, right? he's been cruel to Misha. He's cruel to Chronic with a whip. He grabs that same whip and threatens Ariel. So then Herman wants to take Nora to the lab so he can experiment on beauty with his scalpel, suggesting that he's going to make her deformed as a form of vengeance and justice. And Ariel starts to sort of show some independence here. So Herman, pushes back and threatens him. And as Herman goes to sort of take Nora, Ariel bursts out and attacks him in a sort of animal ferocity. And they have this humongous fight right by the fireplace. And it's
quite a fight.
Yeah. It is, again, it's not as bad as the fight in like The Devil's Daughter, but it's clearly not like one of those smoothly staged, the heroes look actionable, but they're like, grabbing and gouging each other's eyes and rolling around on the floor and punching and all this kind of stuff.
I feel like, in movies today, every swing of a fist is carefully choreographed, but I feel like in these movies, they're just like, okay, you two just fight for a few minutes. Yeah. And like, they're just kind of improvising a fight.
Yeah. It looks like an absolute street fight. Like, yeah. And, it sort of rages all over the building. Eventually Ariel wins, but with the doctor dead, doesn't he throw the doctor off the balcony?
The doctor falls off of the balcony and is like stunned. He's not killed by the fall.
Right. But it is enough to sort of free Ariel, who sort of reverts to his this sort of savage nature. He's like an inarticulate beast. And at the last moment,
after he throws the doctor off, he picks him up, he goes to the window and he throws the doctor out the window, which is over a cliff. And the doctor, you hear him scream and fall and hit the ground and die.
Yes. And then Ariel reverts to this sort of animalistic state and starts stalking Nora. And at the last second, the editor bursts in, shoots him, and there's a final sort of lingering shot of the sea as the rocks crash at the foot of this castle. And then the movie
Did you see
ends.
Misha standing awkwardly in the background as this is happening? I kept thinking, like, this would be a good time to run. I mean,
he sneaks out. Like, I feel like he's like the villain's henchman who just sort of, everyone's forgotten about him, and he sneaks out the back door he'll probably become like a fishmonger in the village, two steps down, hoping everybody's forgotten about the mad scientist in the castle. But yeah, so the movie's over. And what do we think? Like, what are your impressions of this film?
What an interesting movie. I just really enjoyed this one.
Yeah. Like, it's definitely like a melodrama. It feels like a soap opera, right? Because though it does have an action sequence where they fight, it's really about this sort of psychological tension between Nora and Herman and the conversations they have. And I kind of loved it. I found that really interesting because it's all about the conversations, largely.
Let's, yes, I agree. Let's unpack our feelings for the show by asking our usual set of questions, because I think I have a lot more to say about this, and I think you do too. So do you mind if we jump into our wrap-up questions?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, John, is there a hero party in this movie?
Not really. I think Nora, I think one of the things we were kind of hoping to see or expected to see in the 1950s was sort of stronger female characters. If she reminds me of any of our previous heroes, it's Mary from the original Ghostbreakers.
I had the same thought. Yeah,
she's an independent person. She knows what she wants to do. She has a career. There's no boyfriend. There's no husband. It's just really about her. So there's not a hero party, but we have a heroine, and it's Nora.
And how does the party do? How many survive?
She survives, but is subjected to great trauma.
Yes. Is there a zombie horde in this movie?
No, but there is, I would think, very clearly a zombie. So,
how are zombies destroyed or killed in this movie?
So you got to shoot them.
Now, at the end, so obviously the main cause of death of the zombie was getting shot, but there was a quote that the zombie would only live as long as Herman lived, or something to that effect.
Yes.
So when Herman died, like the zombie state, I guess, well, the mind control ended, although I guess he's still a revived corpse, so he's still a zombie. So I guess he reverted into like a feral zombie at that point.
And I will say, so a couple of things about this. What we have here, so I want to actually, let's get into this right here. So So there's the doctor who is sort of Dr. Frankenstein, but is a sort of monster in his own right. And he revives this corpse who is a zombie. It's not I'm not saying it's a golem like I've been saying all this time that Frankenstein is. So multiple thoughts about this is, so first of all, I think I had made a nerdy distinction and dismissal of the importance of the Frankenstein monster on zombie movies. I think there is a strong connection. I think we've seen it all throughout our first season and these ones where there's a sort of mad scientist vibe to zombies. So I think my sort of decision or choice to ignore that and immediately categorize it as something else was a mistake, because we're observing how that influences zombie. This almost feels like the missing link of Golem to zombie, right? Like he reanimates this creature, but it becomes this mindless, first controlled, but then mindless, aggressive creature like a modern zombie, and is not like the Frankenstein monster at all. Am I making any sense here?
You are. And yeah, so I mean, the next questions I was going to ask are like, what type of zombie strain are we dealing with? Is this something new? And this feels like, in some ways, a throwback to some of the early zombie movies, and in other ways, like something just a slightly different category of being.
Yeah, and I don't want to. I feel like I've been making a lot of assumptions, and part of this podcast is about seeing all of those sort of smashed as we go along. But there's something about this reanimated creature that feels more like a modern zombie. Once he loses his suave exterior and becomes sort of this feral creature, he seems like a fast-moving zombie.
He does, yes. And in the times when that feral nature overtakes him briefly, I mean, like, yeah, he charges and he runs. I mean, we would call this like a fast zombie, I think.
Yeah.
And devoid of reason or anything like that, just grunting.
Would you add that, or consider that the grunting is the same sound as Kronik made earlier? So is this like a brain transference?
I feel like it was a personality transference from Kronik to this man. Yeah.
So the Wikipedia article for this movie says that Herman transplants Kronik's brain into Ariel. And I was going to be all like, that's not what happened. But I do, because there's nothing in this movie about like transplanting a brain. But I do wonder if that's what the movie kind of meant was happening.
I feel like they're transferring the personality, but Kronik is so primitive that the doctor could then control him. And when he died, he reverted. So it's mindless because Kronik was like a Neanderthal or something. But it
Hence
creates
the name
that
Kronik.
Kronik.
Well, I wondered about that. Yeah, is that supposed to evoke like Cro-Magnon?
I think
man?
so. Yeah.
Okay.
But what I think the end result is, and why we're curious about it, is despite sort of being a primitive Neanderthal and reanimated like Frankenstein, the mix that we get out of all these ingredients is something that looks remarkably like a modern zombie.
It does. It's got your modern style feral zombie, but it also has that zombie master controlled, like more deliberate zombie. And this is the first time a zombie master has been able to control a zombie such that it can that it appears to anyone looking or talking to it like it's a full living person.
Yeah. So again, I think there's a bunch of new stuff here. I said it was a missing link earlier. That's an assumption, but I'd like to see how this plays out over the next few movies. And I'd be curious to see if, like, for example, there's two actors, both Miroslava and the lead of this movie did appear in American films. And I'm curious, Mexico is not that far from Los Angeles. I'm curious to see if some of the influence here, unspoken, starts to impact our other 1950s movies. So
I just want to add a reminder that the idea that when the zombie master dies, the connection is broken, that goes all the way back to White Zombie, to the very first zombie film we watched, which is interesting.
Absolutely. And the sort of cliff and rocks is right from that movie, right?
Yeah.
Like Bela Lugosi tumbles over the cliff at the end of White Zombie, and that's what frees our heroine there. So, yeah, absolutely.
I am glad that at this point in time, in the early 50s, this feels like a zombie movie. Mm-hmm. It feels like a zombie, not another type of undead. It's clearly modeled after the other zombies we've seen, but it's just new and different. And it just pleases me that the creators felt there was space in the zombie concept to just do something a little different.
Yeah.
So John, let's move on though to talk about your pillars, which we established. These are your 4 original pillars.
Yes, that we
setting sort of the standard of what makes a zombie movie. So was there an apocalypse in this movie?
No.
Was there contagion in this movie?
No contagion.
Were there tough moral choices in this movie?
I think so, but not in the way we usually mean. But there is Nora has feelings for the doctor that are complicated.
Yes.
And he has complicated feelings back and invokes a zombie to do his bidding. So there is this relationship that is central to the movie that turns sour, and that is part of it. But it's not exactly in the way I meant it, but I'd say yes. It's about difficult choices that, rather than just being a cackling mad scientist, you feel like Herman may have some motivation for his behavior,
Yes.
different than just craziness,
I wouldn't say he is real sympathetic in this movie,
No.
but you can sort of appreciate his wild overreaction to what he sees as a betrayal, I think.
Yes.
And John, you mentioned cackling mad scientist. May I demonstrate?
Please. Yeah, he's got a cackle.
That's Dr.
Now,
Crimmon.
it's not maniac cackle, but it's pretty good.
No. All right. Lastly, John, does this movie have loved ones turning against you?
I mean, I think so. I think both of the main characters feel somebody they love has turned against them. You know what I mean?
I think so too. Yep. Okay. So we have a new set of questions that were actually 1950s specific. So John, do you want to walk us through those?
Yeah, we're going to turn this on its head a little bit, and I'm going to prompt Andy for these questions, partially because we did that 1950s episode, and these are derived from that episode, sort of, are the themes we're expecting from 1950s horror movies showing up in our movie here. So is paranoia a major theme of this film?
I want to say not really, but put an asterisk next to it. I mean, one of the scary elements of the story is that normal looking handsome guy chatting with you is not who he appears to be. He is, in this case, he's being mind controlled by a zombie, but it evokes, it's the same sort of feel, from like an Invasion of the Body Snatchers type of thing. So I don't think that paranoia was really the main theme of this movie, but I think it's certainly present in that particular part of the film.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Now, here's another one that I think is more relevant, but we also called out this theme of sort of, literally wearing masks and hiding your true dark nature and this feeling that you have to conform and the hypocrisy of those who conform. Like, that was a theme we were looking for. What do you think about this movie?
Yes, I can see that. I mean, it is, you feel the injustice of Herman being, and the hypocrisy of Herman being, rejected for his physical appearance. And I mean, this movie is all about, what happens when you don't look like society expects you to look.
Agreed.
Right?
It's all about conformity. He may be a brilliant plastic surgeon, but he can't show his face because he looks like such a monster.
Yeah. So, okay. That's good. I think we can say that this movie does have those themes.
Have our movie heroes changed in what way? Like, do we feel Nora is really different than movie heroes we've seen in the past?
I don't think so. I mean, she is young, but she's a young professional. She's kind of already on the track of her life. She's got a career, and this doesn't feel like this protagonist getting younger is going to, lead us to like teenagers being the protagonist at some point, right? And this does not feel like a move in the teenager direction.
No, and I think she reminds us both of the woman from I Walked with a Zombie and from Mary in The Ghostbreakers. Like, she is confident and single and has a plan, but that's not brand new here, I guess is what.
Yeah.
Yep. We were predicting that science and science fiction would take on a huge new role in these movies. Did we get that here?
So obviously mad science is the mechanism by which the zombies created.
Yeah.
And I think there's some kind of dark science in the question of like, why is Kronik down in the basement? Like, has Herman been doing some sort of extended horrible social experiment with this mindless human he's got down there? That said, I don't think that technology is really the theme of this film.
No, it's more like a throwback to Frankenstein than it is like a look forward to rockets and ray guns and stuff like that. And finally, is the genre of zombie sort of abandoning its local roots and moving sort of into a broader world context in this movie?
That is an interesting question. So obviously this movie on the surface has nothing to do with those original local roots of the zombie myth in Haitian and Caribbean voodoo.
In fact, it has nothing to do with it. This movie is set in Prague.
It doesn't, but the type of zombie and its relationship to its controller feels very old school white zombie to me.
But I wonder if that's what we were getting at. Like, that relationship will exist, but it exists without any reference to voodoo or Haiti or that sort of Caribbean life.
Exactly. So I do think that's pretty interesting, and I suspect this is the direction things are going, right? People will be mentioning those ethnic roots of the zombie mythos a lot less and less, and they'll just be using the tropes without. So I think that, yes, this movie does feel like it represents a move away from the local roots of the zombie myth and into, I guess, a more international cosmopolitan genericized mythos.
I agree. And so we'll be asking these questions at the end of every movie in some form to see if our predictions sort of about the way these movies are going to go is going to be true. So awesome. All right. How do we wrap up here? Andy, what else we got?
We just got a couple more questions, John. First, would John and Andy survive in this zombie world?
I feel like I could be gotten by either Dr. Crimmon or the zombie. They're pretty good at what they do. They're the first sort of scary master and zombie that I'm actually maybe afraid of.
I think so too. If Herman got mad at me, I think he could kill me. He would get me with the zombie that looks and acts like a regular person.
Right. Yep.
All right. And then lastly, is this a zombie movie? Well, not lastly, second to lastly, is this a zombie movie or is this a movie with a zombie in it?
I'm going to say it's a movie with a zombie in it because it's not centrally about the creation of that zombie. He is a tool for the Doctor's revenge, but it feels like a move towards a zombie movie a little bit more. But I don't think we're quite there yet.
I think I mostly agree with you. I think this is like halfway between those two types of film. The zombie is not the central element, but it's a fairly involved element once it arrives in the movie. So it's like a kind of zombie movie, I would say. Again,
this movie feels a lot like a missing link in a lot of ways. Yeah,
it does. And so this is our final question. John, do you recommend this movie? First, just in general, and secondly, specifically to listeners of this podcast who are, I assume, sicko zombie nerds.
So I'm going to say yes to both. It's a very sort of cheesy melodrama, but I found myself really drawn into the story. So it's kind of a hard get to find with English subtitles. I was easily able to find a Spanish language version, and I also think zombie fans should watch it because I think there are new, interesting, different things here if you want to follow this course of zombie history.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with both of those. I don't think this is like a iconic zombie film by any means, but it's definitely a worthwhile little corner of this genre, and I think it's worth watching.
Yeah, my closing thought is I made those pillars, and I think they're accurate for a very long period of the zombie genre. But what we're discovering is, or what I'm discovering is that how we got here is in a bunch of little random places that we don't expect, like the Bowery at Midnight or this movie, which have bits that are very recognizable but aren't quite there, and how they're all sort of coming together. So I think if you're a sleuth in that way, the way we are, I think you should watch it.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Okay, well, that means it's time for the scariest part of the episode, and that is when producer Brad unveils for us what we are going to watch for next week's episode. Okay.
So first of all, for those, just listening, which is everybody, Brad has put the pink bug-eyed ghost from the Ghost Breakers in, and it says, John, no peeking to prevent me from looking at the poster early. So I appreciate you, Brad.
You're welcome. Not that we need to make this funny, but it's fun. We are going back to the U.S. We are leaving Mexico in 1953. And we're going to 1955 for...
The creature with the atom brain. He comes from beyond the grave. Would you like to describe this poster, Andy?
Oh, boy. Okay. Yes. So there's a lot going on in this poster. Someone is a believer in more is more when it comes to this poster. All right. There is a green tinted menacing guy in a trench coat.
Wearing a tie.
With a tie. He looks very menacing. He's like charging right at you. He's got like an atomic, like a little drawing of atoms
on his forehead. But it's like
a nuclear symbols thing on his head. And the phrase "chock full of thrills" is over top of that character.
I like the subtlety of the not chock full of thrills, but shock full of thrills.
Yes. It's nuance. I think that's the word I wanted. Nuance is what this poster is.
It also says based on scientific facts.
Yes. I can't decide if my favorite bit is the woman for no reason who's sort of lounging at the bottom in a bathrobe that's going to come off, or this, as if we weren't getting enough from this incredibly subtle poster, the text on the bottom left in little letters that said, "A dead man walks the streets to stalk his prey. So terrifying, only screams can describe it." So subtle is where we're headed with this film.
So what that means is our next episode is just going to be you and me screaming into the mic. Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of other stuff in the background. There's a guy who looks like his head has been maybe cut open.
Replaced with a metal dome?
And put a dome put on it. And then there's various women and men recoiling in horror. There's some suited guys watching two people wrestle over a gun. I don't know.
Yeah,
there's a lot. Look this one up, listeners. Creature with the atom brain.
I got a good feeling about this one, guys.
I do too. And I just can't tell you how much I love it when these posters promise you something specific.
Yes.
We've had what did Maniac promise us?
Dynamic sex lectures.
Dynamic sex lectures. We had
John's still waiting.
Devil's Daughter. Devil's Daughter promised us the secrets of the blood dance.
Yep.
And so this one promises us a lot of scientific facts. I cannot wait.
If you are in Los Angeles, the picture we're looking at, I actually took it. It's in the lobby of the Alamo Draft House. They have a lot of old posters on the wall.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, my. Oh, that's delightful.
I grabbed it when I walked by and I saw that.
That's amazing. All right. Well, join us next episode for... Actually, I'd like a clarification. It's not the creature. It's just creature with the atom brain. You've been listening to Zombie Strains. We'll be back next episode to talk about another zombie movie. If you enjoyed our podcast, please take a moment to rate us in your podcast app of choice. Tell a friend. Follow us on Instagram at zombiestrains. All of this helps like-minded people find the show. See you next time.